27th of February 2017. I was 16 years old and boarding a 12-hour flight to Santiago, Chile, where I'd spend the next year studying. There was only one small problem. My Spanish, it kinda sucked.
Sí, me han ayudado.
This is a common experience. Even after years of studying grammar and passing all of their exams, many students still never achieve fluency in a foreign language. But what if I told you it's completely possible to reach conversational fluency in a foreign language in 6 months or less? Sure, you're not going to be writing the next best-selling novel, but you'll be able to understand and express yourself in day-to-day conversation. Alright, let's dive in. When I first started studying Spanish, I didn't really have a clear goal in mind. I had this dream of visiting South America one day, but studying a language was also kind of a requirement for school, and then somewhere along the way, I got muddled up with this idea of wanting to sound like a native speaker. Let's get real for a second. I have friends who were born in New Zealand, but whose parents are from England, and I can still pick up differences in their accent, a common language and 2 generations. So do you seriously think you're gonna sound indistinguishable from a native speaker in your foreign language? Unless you're applying to the Secret Service, this should not be your goal. Instead, I genuinely believe that everyone's first goal when learning a language should be to be able to communicate. Only once you reach this point can you start worrying about those other goals. By reframing your goal to something as humble as communication, it makes the language learning journey feel a lot more within your reach. When learning a new language, not all words and phrases are made equal. You may have heard of the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. The idea is that 20% of your actions drive 80% of the result. In the context of language learning, the most commonly used 2,000 to 3,000 words make up 80% of everyday communication. And so by focusing on these words, you can progress much faster. Now 2,000 to 3,000 words might sound like a lot, but when you consider that a language like Spanish has over 150,000 words, it starts sounding not so bad. When it comes to the 80-20 rule, there's one more tip that I just completely forgot to mention, but I couldn't leave it out of this video, and that is learning the most common prefixes and suffixes. I know that sounds very boring, but if learning new words adds to your vocabulary, then learning prefixes and suffixes are like multipliers because they layer on top of the words that you already know. For example, in Spanish, if you know that ice cream is helado and ero/era is occupation, then you can pretty quickly work out that heladero is an ice cream man. So look into the most common prefixes and suffixes in your target language because it's going to rapidly grow your vocabulary with minimal effort on your part. Now you may be thinking, hold on a minute, language learning is about more than just memorizing words, and you would be right. But the great thing is the 80-20 principle can be applied to other aspects of language learning as well. For example, you may discover that 20% of a language's grammar rules will get you through about 80% of situations. You may decide to just focus on learning present tense. If you need to talk about the past or the future, you can use time indicators like yesterday or tomorrow. For example, you might say in Spanish, ayer como pan. Sure, it's grammatically wrong, but you'll get your point across. And we can always build on this foundation later. Just remember that for now, the goal is communication. By ruthlessly focusing on what is essential, you're going to progress much faster. I used to be terrified of making mistakes, and unfortunately, I think some of this stems from the way languages are taught. Often in tests, you don't get marks for doing things right. You start with full marks and only lose them as you make mistakes. But here's the thing, language is not mathematics, it's not computer code. You can make plenty of minor mistakes and you'll probably still get your point across. And in those rare instances where it does hinder communication, I promise that those embarrassing mistakes will be some of the most instructive experiences of your whole language learning journey. I remember being 16 years old and it was scorching Santiago summer and I tried to say, oh, I'm a bit hot, which in Spanish would be tengo calor. But instead I translated literally by saying, estoy caliente, which actually means I'm horny. Yeah, I got a lot of funny looks from my friends, and needless to say, I've never forgot which either phrase means. At some level, I used to think that, oh, once I get good, then I'll start speaking. But I now know that this is completely backwards. To get good, you have to first start speaking. Badly. Yes, badly. You're not going to be good right out the gate, but the only way to get there is to just put your pride aside and start speaking. Now, if you're learning on your own, I'm going to put you onto a website called italki. It's an online community of language learners and teachers where you can find one-on-one lessons for as little as $5 US. And if you sign up with the link in the description, you'll get $10 credit to start you on your journey. You're practicing the most common words and phrases, you're regularly having a conversation with someone in your target language. Now, don't forget to enjoy the process. While I think a time-based goal like 6 months can be very powerful, it also has a dangerous side. If you don't hit your goal, you can start to think that you're not cut out for learning a language, and this is almost never the case. If you're watching this video, you must speak English, and if you learn one language, you can almost certainly learn another. So try and have fun with it. Hang gliding in Rio de Janeiro, visiting Mayan ruins in Mexico, none of these are the rewards you get after learning a language. They can all be part of the process. So dream big and have fun with it. I hope you found these tips helpful, but if the idea of memorizing a couple of thousand words is raising your blood pressure, then make sure you're subscribed because I'll be dropping a video on how I memorize lots of vocabulary quickly. Otherwise, that video will be linked right here.